We can prove to you that after Israel went into Assyria, that the Greeks took Israel back to Egypt in ships. I'm reading from, this is the Old Testament pseudepigrapha. They were brought on board like wild animals, driven under the constraint of iron binds. Some were fastened by the neck of the benches of the boats. So they had the yokes around their neck and they were tied to the benches of the boats, which is the ships. That's pre-transatlantic slave trade. Third Maccabees 4. In every place then where this decree arrived, a feast at public expense was arranged for the Gentiles. See that? For the Gentiles. With shouts and gladness, for the inveterate enmity which has long ago been in their minds was now made evident and outspoken. Isn't that what happened when Trump became the president? They got a freedom to say what's in their heart. That's why they pissed off now, because our speech is censored now. We can't say. So this word, it says for the inveterate enmity. All right. What does inveterate mean?
Here's the definition of inveterate: having a particular habit, activity, or interest that is long established and unlikely to change.
There you go. So in other words, make America great again. In this particular case, they were saying, make Egypt great again. All right, let me get back. So, with shouts of gladness for inveterate enmity, which had long ago been in their minds, was now made evident and outspoken. But among the Hebrews, there was incessant mourning, lamentation, and tearful cries everywhere. Their hearts were burning, and they groaned because of the unexpected destruction that had suddenly been decreed from or for them. See that? They knew it was coming. And so we, Israel, y'all better wake up and see what's coming. That's why we got to focus on Yah, right? So he can get us up out of this mess. All right. But among the Yahudim, I read that part. What district or city or what habitable place at all, or what streets were not filled with mourning and wailing for them? For with such a harsh and ruthless spirit were they being sent off altogether by the generals in the several cities, that at the sight of the unusual punishments, even some of their enemies, perceiving the common object of pity before their eyes, reflecting upon the uncertainty of life, and shed tears at the most miserable expulsion of these people. For a multitude of gray-headed old men, sluggish and bent with age, was being led away, forced to march at a swift pace by violence, with which they were driven in such a shameful manner. And young women who had just entered the bridal chamber to share married life exchanged joy for wailing, their mirth perfumed, hair sprinkled with ashes, and were carried away unveiled altogether, raising a lament instead of wedding song. as they were torn by the harsh treatment of the heathen in bonds, and in a public view they were violently dragged along as far as the place of embarkation. Their husbands, in their prime of youth, their necks encircled with ropes instead of garlands, spent the remaining days of their marriage festival in lamentations instead of good cheer, and youthful revelry, seeing death immediately before them. They were brought on board like wild animals. Driven under the constant iron bonds. Some were fastened by the neck to the benches of the boats. Others had their feet secured by unbreakable fetters. And in addition, they were confined under a solid deck, so that with their eyes in total darkness they should undergo treatment benefiting traders during the whole voyage. Do y'all hear that? This is what the Greeks did. This is what the Greeks did to Israelites. Back to Egypt in ships. Happened during Ptolemy's. All right, let's read it again. All right, they were brought on board like wild animals, driven under constraint of iron bonds. Some were fastened by the neck to the benches of the boats. Others had their feet secured by unbreakable fetters. And in addition, they were confined under a solid deck. See that? Slave deck. Same thing that happened in the second. So how do you think it was the same people, descendants of Japheth, that did the same thing, brothers and sisters? They studied the history of Israel. All right. And in addition, they were confined under the solid deck, so that with their eyes in total darkness, they should undergo treatment befitting traders during the whole voyage. When these men had been brought to the place called Skedia or Skedia. Now, Skedia is, I'm going to explain to you what it is. It says Skedia was an area of docks some 3 miles from Alexandria, which is the city that was named in Egypt after Alexander. Possibly a landing place, right? Possibly a landing place. So that's what Skedia is, all right? And the voyage was concluded as King had decreed. He commanded that they should be enclosed in a hippodrome which had been built with a monstrous perimeter wall in front of the city, and which was well suited to make them an obvious spectacle to all coming back into the city and those from the city going out into the country, so that they could neither communicate with the king's forces nor in any way claim to be inside the circuit city. So they put him in prison so that they couldn't get set free from the people coming to see them. Build a wall. They want to build a wall now. They wanted to build a wall. Man, I'm telling you, y'all don't know. Okay, let's go back. Verse 14. Huh?
You just finished 11.
I finished 11. Okay. And when this had happened, the king, hearing that the Hebrews' compatriots from the city frequently went out in secret to lament bitterly and ignoble misfortune of their brothers, ordered in his rage that these men be dealt with in a precisely the same fashion as the others, not omitting any detail of their punishment. 14. The entire race was to be registered individually, not for the hard labor that has been briefly mentioned before, but to be tortured with the outrages that he had ordered, and at the end be destroyed in the space of a single day. The registration of these people was therefore conducted with bitter haste and zealous intentness from the rising of the sun till its setting, and though uncompleted, it stopped after 40 days. The king was greatly and continually filled with joy, organizing feast in honor of all his idols, while he was selling the Israelites and imprisoning them. He was celebrating his pagan festivals that we have bit into and got built into our psyche, and we can't get away from it. So the king, verse 16, was greatly continually filled with joy, organizing feasts in honor of the idols, and with a mind alienated from truth. See that? With a mind alienated from truth, and with profane mouth, praising speechless things that are not able even to communicate or to come to one's help, and uttering improper words against the supreme Elohim. But after the previously mentioned interval of time, the scribe declared to the king that they were no longer able to take the census of the Hebrews because of the innumerable multitude. Although most of them were still in the country, some still residing in their homes and some at the place, the task was impossible for all the generals in Egypt. All right, in case you're wondering. After he had threatened them severely, charging that they had been bribed and contrived a means of escape, he was clearly convinced about the matter. But this was an act of the invincible providence of him who was aiding the Hebrews from heaven.